Hello, hello, hello. My name is Deepak, and I'm glad you are here with us today. Again, I always like to bring up why we're doing the show, early episodes, but we really wanted to bring a light to all the amazing things that happen in user generated content. I feel like a lot of people talk about AAA games, AA games, these massive games, but we never talk about like what most players in the world are playing, which is user generated content. So I have the privilege of co-hosting with my friend Dilmer. So I'd love to let him give an intro.
Yeah, how is everybody doing? And it's great to have you all. I'm really excited to have a new guest, which is a very special guest that I would say she's an OG Fortnite creator. She has a lot of experience on creating experiences in Fortnite, and we're really excited to learn from her experience for her background. So yeah, I just want to welcome MackJack, and I love to know a little bit more about you, Mac. Give an overview of what you work on, things that you're excited about, and just kind of have you give an intro to everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. What's up, guys? I'm MackJack. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Alliance Studios, and we're a UGC game development studio focused mainly on building original and branded experiences inside Fortnite using uefn. We've worked with Doritos, McDonald's, Prime Hydration, Topgolf, SpongeBob. I mean, so many more. The list goes on. And like you said, yes, I'm an OG creator in the space. I've been there since day one of its release in 2018, and it's been quite a ride. I'm excited to talk more about it. Yeah.
That's awesome. Like, I think a lot of platforms don't realize the power of brand integration, which I know feels like a dirty word. And I'm not trying to make it a dirty word, but what people don't see is like it gives great opportunities for younger creators to learn, right? It gives them that boost of traffic because sometimes it's hard just to get people to notice your games out there. So that's why I love brand integration. So I'd love if you could sort of shed some light, like how like collaborations or how partnerships have sort of shaped, maybe you can talk on a high level, the gaming industry and Fortnite, but also like for you personally and as in your team.
Yeah. I mean, I think for me personally, I'll touch on that. It allowed me to have a career in UGC. The stability around working with brands that have those marketing dollars that want to find, new unique ways to quote unquote advertise their IP. It allowed me to quit my 9 to 5 to turn this into a full studio and bring on more careers to my team, which has been something that I'm just really excited to continue to grow more on. But I think like in terms of how they've shaped the gaming industry, I think they've completely redefined, how brands can connect with audiences. In Fortnite, like players don't just see the brand, like they can interact with it, whether it's racing golf carts through the top golf course or hiding as a Krabby Patty in Bikini Bottom in a prop hunt. They're full on interacting with the brand and the IP. So it's not just good marketing, it's community building, which is super impressive in terms of a marketing lens.
That is amazing. So, like, I'm thinking as a creator that just joined, right? Let's say that I join a Fortnite, and I'm excited about creating and kind of, I wouldn't say duplicating, but getting inspired from other people that are doing things like you that have gone through so many, so much time of development. Like, how did you start it versus how you're working with brands right now? How was that path? Like, what were some of the initial work that you did? And then how do you make the bridge to the now brands know, work with you and you have amazing experience? So I'd love to know more about that.
Yeah, I mean, it was a really interesting kickstart for me working with brands. I was actually the first creator to work with a brand without any support from Epic. So I take claim as the first UGC branded experience in Fortnite. Working with 100 Thieves, Uber Eats, Cash App, and Rocket Mortgage, we built a game for them and brought them in back in 2019. And back then, I didn't know anything about it. I was very like, oh, this is an opportunity. What do I do from here? There was no Googling how to help that had never been done. And so it was very messy in the first first couple months of figuring out how to work with brands inside Fortnite just because it hadn't been done at all. So I was pioneering and figuring out from the start how to do this, what legals I needed to build, what strategies we needed to go forward with. But I think like communication and transparency for me is key. If you can approach the client that you're talking to and get that understanding of what their goals are, and then understand what your audience you're building for, you always want to lean into fun, right? The game has to be fun. And then if the game is strong, we can layer the brand into the world that feels natural through like visuals and quests and characters or UI. Back in the early days of Fortnite, we did a lot of kit bashing. So building out a logo would take days because we were building with these blocks and figuring out how to get the logo to life. And now with uefn, we've got a lot of new tools that we can make things a little bit easier and more customizable. You know, your shopping trolleys and in our Doritos prop hunt, we could label a Doritos Mart shopping trolley and it wasn't just like a random prop. So finding those little ways to integrate that don't feel like an ad slapped in their face. Players care about that. They don't want an advertisement. They want it to feel interactive and fun. And so just making sure that you communicate across the board and push back on some ideas because brands want those ads. They want to be like, no, I want the big logo right here. But if you can communicate as a developer saying, I understand you want that, but let's actually look at what the player is going to see and how the player might react to that and find ways that feel more authentic and natural to the environments you're building.
Oh, I love that. Thank you for yeah, for sharing that, especially the part where you say make it fun and not just throw an ad and then not care really about the players, because at the end of the day it needs to feel like people need to get excited. They need to play. We want them to play, not just have another platform where it's just all audio ads, and then there's really not incentive for people to be there in the first place.
Exactly. Yeah.
So related to that, no, because you both have already addressed it, like some of the challenges. Like, what do you see as the challenges working with a partner and doing collaborations and then trying to bring it to life?
Yeah, I think like with clients specifically, sometimes they're a little bit old hat thinking with their ways of advertising. And so having to acknowledge gaming to them when a lot of them don't have any understanding of gaming at all, that can be one of the biggest hurdles. You know, weapons are always scary in a brand's eyes. They're pretty sensitive to their IP and the audience that they're going after. And so there's some legal hurdles that we have to work through finding, you know, special workarounds like creating a weapon that shoots jelly instead of bullets, right? And figuring out how to deal with the sensitivity that the brands really do care about, which is understandable, but also recognizing as a player, they want the crazy hectic moments that are very well known in a battle royale centric, you know, game mode. So it can be a bit of a challenge to address some of those issues and frustrating for us when we're like, we know it's going to perform better if we do some of these lean ins to what we know players like, but we also have to find that common ground with the brands and just also understanding what their KPIs are, right? It can be nice when a brand doesn't necessarily care if the game is performing well, and it can be more of a campaign product push with, you know, a whole influencer campaign tied in. And it's not always necessarily about the game performing well inside the discovery, which is our biggest hurdle in Fortnite, you know, getting your game visible. You can build something incredible and it still might not find its audience, which can be a little bit frustrating. But ultimately, you know, we have to find ways to work through all of those challenges. And that's where like communication and just transparency across the board is going to help ease all of that process.
Hey,
I Go ahead, Dilmer.
go ahead, Deepak. You're fine. Yep.
I was just making a comment. Like, I won't name the brands that I've worked with, but like, it's always funny when they have the idolized version of their mesh of their particular product, and depending on the stage of the tool, right? Like, well, we can do this version of it, which can be an abstraction, and having those conversations can be, as you know, like fun.
Yes, definitely.
My best one is like, this is early on, so there's even more colors than ever before at Roblox, and I had to explain, like, at the time we only had like so many bits of color, at the time. That's how old I am. So it's like, I
Yes.
can't get you that, and I'll say that product color. This is
Yep.
what I get. But like, that's the cool thing because like you're meeting people where they're at. And I think that's what's so fun.
Mhm.
I was gonna ask. So you brought up a good point on the like visibility on games and how hard it is to stand out. So I'm thinking on Horizon Worlds, right? It's a platform that it's somewhat early in comparison to other platforms right now, like Roblox and Fortnite and all those. So what I'm curious about is what would be your recommendation today? Like if you were to start from zero, and you could relate this to like the stuff that you're doing at Fortnite, but what would you do if you had nothing? You would lose everything, and then you had to start over, but you wanted to do user generated content. And how would you get your game up there, create it? How would you form a team? Like, who would you find? How would you get the game out there so that it gets the visibility that it can get? What would you do to test it to make sure that it does well? Like, I would love to know, like, your thinking process. And I'm being a little bit like, I'm thinking about doing something similar. So I'd love to know that process, that come from your experience.
Yeah, I think like for the first part, I mean, you just got to get in and go. Like anything in your head telling you not to do it or overthinking and wanting to have everything planned out is of course ideal, but it's unrealistic, especially in such a fast-paced, always evolving industry. I think, metas change really fast. Players have really short attention spans, and so not overthinking a lot is a big part to it. But for me, it's making sure that you are finding the community, right? Like you don't be shy of trying to reach out to people. If you're looking to get partnerships and start collaborating with people, get into Discords, get into Reddit, get into Twitter, overshare what you're working on and reach out to the people that intrigue you as well. You never know who might respond back. Not everyone will, but you might get some people that will respond back to be like, "Oh, this sounds like an awesome opportunity. Yeah, let's chat." Or reach out to an influencer. You built this cool game, message the influencer behind it, or promote it on your social medias. The more you speak about what you're doing, I know there's always a fear as artists and creators, your work's going to be copied. It's going to be copied regardless. Like that's just how gaming has always been. Like it's a sad truth, but honestly, like the more you share your work, the more you put it out there, the more people are going to find you, and then your opportunities are going to grow from that.
Oh, I love that. I think that aligns with, I mean, content creation in general and building and be comfortable with sharing. And I personally was really concerned about sharing initially, where I would share something and I'm like, oh no, they're gonna copy my idea, and then you realize that like even if they copy it, by the time that they copy it, it's already like it's too late. Like
Yep.
sometimes it's good to be like the first one and get it out, and just that idea might spark another idea. And so yeah, I think that's important for Horizon World creators that are like, just test, just launch it,
Hmm.
get people to try it, get feedback. So yeah, no,
I
I love that.
I personally want to see more creators streaming them creating. We see a lot of streamers and influencers
Okay.
playing the games, but we don't see a lot of the in development behind the scenes process. And I think that is a really needed step, educating the new creators on what you're doing and showing your frustrations through learning your challenges. And, as an influencer, you think you've got to be perfect and set up your setup exactly how it should be, but being real and showing your struggles, showing your challenges of, oh, I want to do this as I'm building, I'm working with the material. I don't really know how to work with materials. Well, show that on stream, show you looking and trying to find the resources to building your education as a developer and be a streamer doing that. It's a very untapped field right now. And I really feel like it's something that could blow up if we start to see more creators actually building their games live.
I love that. Yeah, I love that. I'm gonna hire you for an advising on how to get more people into Horizon Worlds by talking about their games. Because I agree. I think we need that. We need more people talking about the development process. I mean, on MR, on Horizon Worlds, on Fortnite. I think there's a lot of educators, but there's not a lot of developer creators talking about what they're learning and their struggles. So yeah, no, I relate with that.
Yeah, it's needed for sure.
Mac, I would love to ask you, like, I know, like, a lot of your career is focused with brands and partnerships, but I like to also ask, like, how have you tried to expand beyond that, right? Developing your own IP, your own content. How's that transition been? Or I know you've always done some in the background, so maybe talk to that.
Mhm. Yeah, no, I love working with brands, but there is definitely beauty in creating your own games without anyone telling you what you can and can't do. And so I mean, also just being a business leader, it's important to have the different paths. So if one starts to not be supporting you well enough, you've got other areas that you're trying things in. You know, we do big original game ideas at Alliance. We also do small little games with, you know, more meme trends or testing little demo maps. So we try to diversify a lot within the ecosystem and not just have all our eggs in one basket with their branded worlds. I love doing original games. I think, you know, it's the we still operate on the same kind of principles, right? You need to have the strong hooks, the replayable loops, and visual clarity, and an overall fun game. And we treat those maps as, you know, portfolio pieces and community building games, and try to grow our Discord community with some ideas that we have. And they just give us room to experiment. So it's definitely an area that we like to invest a lot of our time into, and balancing, you know, the branded space. It can be a little bit of a challenge because ultimately the branded space is more of strict timelines to it. And we weren't in early days, we weren't so strict on our timelines with our own original games, but as we've grown as a studio and, you know, responsibilities are there with meeting our own KPIs and making sure that we're not spending ridiculous amount of resources on our wacky ideas, it's definitely fun to figure out the right balance to building all of our different types of games we do.
That's super great feedback. I have an interesting. I think it's an interesting question, and it's about there's been a lot of talks from the Fortnite CEO, and then Tim Cook, and then finally I saw on X that Fortnite is available on iOS, which is great and amazing. And I'm like, okay, I finally can try it because I don't have enough time to be going into consoles. And it's like, oh, I now have an opportunity to play with my kids and
Yes.
and have fun. So how does that affect you? Like, is that a big jump in terms of usage? And I asked this like to kind of align it with Horizon Worlds because Horizon Worlds is available on iOS. So I just want people like that are listening, that are building, like the opportunity on mobile platforms to be on iOS, on Android, and how does that affect the metrics on the games that you're working on?
Yeah, I think so. For we haven't really noticed a huge increase yet. Like, it's obviously just came back, but I definitely anticipate a slow incline in our numbers. I think, you know, if you go to any airport, kids are playing on their iPads, Roblox normally. And every time I went to airports and seeing all these kids on their phones playing all these games, it's the most accessible device to be able to play games on. And not being on iOS was definitely crushing. We used to be, and we had really great numbers at the time. And when they had to remove from the App Store, that was a big yikes moment for all of us. But for me, it's more around being able to reach a different kind of audience. So Fortnite specifically is so geared towards the competitive battle royale audience because that's what most people know Fortnite for, even still today. Even though you can go into Fortnite Discovery and there are so many different variety of game modes, the competitive battle royale geared games are the ones that are still most popular. And so for me, the mobile release is like, we're going to get more casual games. We're going to get an audience that isn't so necessarily wanting to go crazy cranking 90s on their phones. They want to just chill and relax and play a, you know, a mind bending game or little games to pass the time. So I'm excited about the change of games that are going to be coming. We're going to get a lot more variety and hopefully more spotlight on some of the unique, innovative games versus the constant box fights and red versus blues that the player base just has always loved because it helps them practice for the battle royale game. So that's the big change that I'm excited about.
Does that change like the designing process? Like now that you're targeting mobile versus a console type controller, does that add a lot of it? Do the tools already provide a lot of that for you? And again, to align this with what we're doing, like we do offer mobile and VR support, and it works out of the box, but there's some customization that you can do. Is that similar to how like Fortnite works on an editor?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a pretty smooth process in building for all platforms on the editor, which is really relieving. Like UEFN is a great tool set. There's still obviously a lot of improvements and changes that they are set to come and that we can't wait to come, but ultimately, yeah, it's not changed too much. It's more changing our strategy on what games we are releasing quicker or testing the waters on different things. It's going to be a lot of R&D in the upfront, and I anticipate a lot of Fortnite developers looking at Roblox, Horizon Worlds. I anticipate that being the place that we start to be like, well, what was successful in mobile in these places? Now let's see if we can kind of replicate those successes within Fortnite. But yeah, luckily in terms of editor, it's a pretty smooth process and not too much extra on our hands that we have to do.
Awesome. No, thank you. That's a great answer.
Is there like a special mobile game you've already been thinking about?
Oh, I love I love trivia games. I love Temple Run. Like that was like one of my go-to favorites. I think with mobile games, it's about finding like easy interactable things that, not too much time consuming crossword puzzles, like so many different things that you can do on mobile versus computer. Like most computer players aren't really playing those crossword puzzle type games or trivia games, but mobile you are. So that's what I'm excited about. I've got so many ideas. My team's like, slow down, but I'm like, let's start testing. Let's see what this audience is gonna like with mobile games, and figuring out what to start with, what to launch with is always the tricky part. But like I said before, don't get in your head too much. Just do it. Just go. And that's what I'm trying to do as well.
Would you be interested in trying one of those like in Horizon Worlds? Like, would that, like, maybe what would be a way to incentivize you to try to build something small into Horizon Worlds? And what would success look like to you in terms of, I mean, we can say in terms of money or in terms of usage, like how many people are
Mhm.
we talking about? Uh, I mean, and think about it like from where you started. And like if you were starting today, what would success look like? How many people should you have concurrently? And maybe how much money you would think would be like sufficient for somebody starting out? If we can
Mhm.
talk about some of that.
Yeah, no, money's always a fun
Yeah.
subject to talk about, right? And for me, it comes down to how much resources are being put into the project, and just making sure that we're making some sort of profit off of our time. I think for like what it would take, honestly, I'd have to do a lot of research into how easy the tools are from most of my developers knowing just UEFN and Fortnite creative tools, and how easy it would be to learn the new tool set or the platform you're building on in Horizon Worlds. Is that going to be some educating on our side, or is it going to be pretty smooth transition into, a sandbox engine, getting in and just kind of naturally figuring it out as we kind of did with Fortnite Creative. It was a pretty natural, seamless building tool set, and then they grew it slowly, which was very nice for our own education throughout it. But now, since we're such seasoned developers in Fortnite, it has been tricky to make that jump over to other platforms, because it's like, we're the leaders in this one. Is it worth our time and resources to jump and learn something else and try something else? there is a huge part of me that wants to, that's like, we need to kind of diversify not only into Fortnite, because, if something happens as a business owner, it is a responsibility of mine to make sure we have those plans for, you know, rare situations that could impact our sustainability within the current ecosystem. But for me, it's like, money's hard because is it going to take my full team of 10 to build a game? Is it going to take just, two people, an artist and a programmer? Then the cost can be a lot lower. I think trying things is always important, and it's definitely something I foresee in the future. More on when is the right time to do it, right? Like right now with mobile coming out, now all of our time is like, we've got to start like pushing out stuff for Fortnite mobile. When that kind of eases up, then it might create some gaps in our time to figure out other strategies for testing out the waters and other platforms. And I'm excited about that, because like I said, it is important as a business leader to have those backup plans and have other avenues that you can dip into. As far as CCU goes, I mean, we have games that have, only 50 players in it regularly. We have games that have 500. I mean, and then we've got games that get featured and then they get thousands of players regularly, but that they eventually die off. So CCU is a tough one to be like, this is success to us, because it's constantly changing and we really aren't too certain on what like the correct success metric is, because there's a lot of hidden data that we still don't have access to within Fortnite. But 1,000 players on a game sounds amazing. Like when I was first starting, I had like 10 people play my game, and I was like, this is so cool. So I think like as a developer, we all have different goals. We all have different responsibilities. And if you're a solo dev, you can put a little bit more of your time and resources into things versus, someone in my position who has 10 other people counting on us regularly for their monthly and biweekly paychecks. It's important for us to be really smart about our time and resources. So those moves are a bit trickier for me to make, but still something I want to do. Long answer.
No, no, no. It's an excellent answer. Like
Yeah.
I love it. Perfect.
Yeah.
It made me think though, like, what are features you are wanting that you don't have access to right now?
Live data is the big one. Yeah, I think the delays we have I mean, we just got access to A/B testing on our thumbnails, which I think was so necessary for many years ago. It would have been nice to have. But now it's like, this is a great feature, but the delay on when we receive the data from how it's performing is so massive that it doesn't give us any opportunity to make moves, right? And when your visibility and discovery is only for short increments of time, you really need those live numbers to make those moves quickly to adjust your gameplay right away. And so it's a time challenge for us on like, all right, let's just guess that this is what is going to do well. And then, disappointing numbers when you receive them super late. So the live data would be huge. I also I want customization. Like there needs to be more customization, our own items, the ability to create our own shops, characters. The item shop is huge with the player base in Fortnite, and we're very limited on that. And I've tweeted it many times. I think Epic's built a great game around Fortnite and incentivized its players and its influencers to play because there was a lot of really great rewards. Everyone wants to be the next Booga. And so they're playing and investing time into that game. It's a bit trickier for us to build those kind of reward systems because there's some rules that prohibit us for doing, certain types of challenges or call to actions within our games. And so building community can be a bit tricky when we can't direct link to things, when we can't create big competitions that give away rewards. Those are kind of the things that I feel like we're really heavily missing out on, and creating our own communities within Fortnite. I'm hopeful that there are some changes that will come in the future in those aspects, but ultimately, like we're just riding the ride that Epic is creating and changing regularly. Yeah.
I think you mentioned something that really resonated with me, and that is I don't think people pay a lot of attention to thumbnails and how important it is. And I say it from a YouTube content creator standpoint, because it used to go here and then it will come out here. Because I'm like, oh, the content is more important, the game is more important, but who cares about the thumbnail? And in reality, like that, I'm just curious to know, like, what kind of metrics, because YouTube gives you can give it 3 thumbnails and
Mhm.
then you run A/B testing and it tells you the CTA. Like how does that work on Fortnite? How impactful? What kind of percentage is good? Like in your experience? And I
Yeah.
say this because of, like, again, Horizon World creators. They're working on games and they're very like new people. Like I was a long time ago, where I just work on work and never talk about anything, or I don't really think about the marketing part, which we now know is really important. You mentioned Twitter and how important that part is. So yeah, from your point of view, like how does that work? How do you use those tools in your team? And yeah, what percentages are good versus what's not good?
Yeah, I think like this is part of the frustration for us because there isn't that built in this is success, right? There isn't the live data across all of Discovery. So if a game is performing really well, we can't see what their percentage is on their thumbnail. Like there's no way of knowing without reaching out to them, like, hey, how is your goated render doing? How is it performing? What is the percentage, showing there? So there's not that metric yet on if it's lower than this, you should probably be improving it. If it's higher than this and it's performing, average, there's none of that data exists yet for us. So we are having to compare our own internal projects. We communicate with some creators as well, but comparing our own internal projects, we have like a 2% right now. If it's lower than 2%, we know like it's not doing well. We need it to be higher than that. But I've heard there's some creators with like 12%, and I'm like, how the heck did you get that? But I mean, it's hard because we don't have that live data shared across the board, and that I think would be really helpful. And it kind of frustrates me that everything is so hidden and secret because it's really hard to learn player behavior without those missing pieces. So in my eyes, it's important to ask those kind of questions and to share like this is the number that our studio's kind of looking at right now. But ultimately, I do hope that the Epic releases more, metrics for us on this is hitting average, this is fair, etc. Something to give us a little bit more insight into what's successful inside Fortnite.
I think 100%. I think people forget, at least this is from my experiences from all these platforms, is everyone's learning in real time. So when I'm an Unreal developer, Unity developer, right? And I do a traditional app, you sort of just throw it over the fence, right? And you just need it to do well in that moment, right?
Mhm.
The beauty of live service games, the real beauty of live service games, right, is like even if you had zero, you could still keep modifying, right? You could still keep tinkering. You can, and then and like the platform itself is an organism.
Mhm.
And you're not trying to just learn player behavior on your game. You're trying to learn player behavior in the ecosystem.
Exactly.
And that's, I think, the thing that people often forget is like it's on the platform, in my opinion. So this is the opinion statement to teach you where's the trends.
Yep.
What are people into, right? Like, and I think like social media does that better
Mhm.
than gaming platforms. I think we'll get there one day.
Yeah. And that's always the response, right? Is we will get there.
Yeah.
It is coming.
I think
Just
like
be patient.
I think it's like we know it because I mean you said X, right, at Twitter, and that's why like TikTok and YouTube Shorts and because they got so good at measuring engagement and metrics,
Mhm.
and people have like attention spans of like 3 to 6 seconds. Like it's super crazy, and we get all that data. So in a way, we're like it's expected. But then platforms that are so big that are like old school, they're trying to catch up to that social aspect that happens more organically, and it's like really rapid and really fast. So what I'm getting to is, do you use TikTok and do you use Short? Does your team measure some of that possible
Yes.
success? And does that work better than, I mean, going back to the platform? Like, how does that work within your team?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to be using those other platforms. You should never just publish and expect that your game is going to just naturally find success that way. Having a good strategy in terms of social launches, or working with the right marketing partnership team to amplify the game. I think that is the connecting factor that a lot of people miss, right? It's so important to market your game, and it's really tricky in Fortnite because, like I said, there's so many things we can't do with call to actions. And I think the one of the biggest hurdles that Fortnite itself has is it's a chunky game to download. And so, like you said, the attention spans of players are really small. And so asking them to sit for 5+ minutes for a whole download to come, it's hard to get those new players. They already got it installed and downloaded, it's a little bit easier. But if you're asking for a new audience to come in and we just released this awesome new game, come play it, they first have to download Fortnite. And then they have to go find the game. And that can be, extra steps that frustrate players, and they end up leaving and moving on to something that they could get to a lot quicker. So I think like the download sizes, once that is improved, that's going to help a lot. But social media is a huge factor, and comparing your data can also be tricky. We've paid influencers good chunks of money to try to promote our games, and comparing that to the CCU and what's happening there, like it's hard to actually visibly see that actually impacted it. So it can be a hard challenge on our end to invest more money into influencer campaigns or campaigns through social media, unless they're our own expenses, because it's not a direct like, oh, we just paid Nick A to go play our game, random influencer there. And actually seeing that impact in gameplay can be hard. So again, it's a missing pieces. We're guessing a lot, hoping that this is the right move to make. But I still think it's important to do that, because we're in the land of opportunity, right? There is a lot of risk in terms of building UGC, but it's one game away from being that, oh my gosh, this got us success. This got us that opportunity. You never know how it's going to roll out, and it can surprise you. It can frustrate you, but it can surprise you. And I think that's where it's important to keep your emotions in check with everything that you're pushing out. We have a hard time being so tied to the games we make and that we love and put all of our thought and joy into, but ultimately you've got to think about it as a business and know you're going to have a lot of misses before you find that success. And you have to figure out how to balance, your roller coaster ride, and knowing it's going to happen. You just have to keep going.
Speaking of rides, I've really enjoyed our conversation.
Yeah.
I will make sure to reach out more often. I know I get in my head. We've known each other for a while, but I'd like to end on this question that I want to ask all guests from now on, Dilmer, just to give you a heads up. Where do you see the future of UGC in 10 to 20 years? I'm giving you a wide range and in the future.
This is a good question. And it's hard because I think the new audience, they are very different than us older gamers, right? It's very quick endorphins, quick attention spans. And so that can be a bit tricky as developers to release a fast game that only hits for a moment and then moving on. But I think, in 10 years, I don't think gaming, it'll just be a form of entertainment. It's going to be like the dominant culture. You're going to see the shift where games are no longer something that you just play after work. It's where you're going to go to socialize, where you're going to go to express creativity, building businesses, discovering new brands. I think platforms like Fortnite and Roblox and Horizon, they're already hinting at that future where games are evolving into like digital ecosystems. But more than that, I see a world where creators are more at the center, and players aren't just consuming the content, they're shaping it. So they're earning from it, they're collaborating with brands on it and building careers through it. I think we're going to be moving past the idea of users and into a generation of more digital citizens who, expect agency and personalization and ownership. So I think as creators, it's our job to help build that future responsibly, and one where our creative voices are supported, monetization is sustainable, games are more inclusive and accessible and meaningful. I think that's super important, and what keeps me passionate about my job in what I do with Fortnite. We're building a future here. We're building the next generation of games and making sure that we're tuned in to what people are saying and how people are reacting, and building up those communities and working with the right people. It's all big pieces of a giant puzzle. But I'm excited to see where gaming goes. I've been a gamer my whole life, and I'm on the long-term ride here. I will never not love gaming. So excited to see where it goes.
I'm going to steal your answers.
That
Well,
was a great answer.
Thank you.
hi, Mac. Thank you so much. And for
Of
everybody,
course.
like Dilmer, you want to close it out?
Yeah, no, thank you, MackJack. It was this was super inspirational. I love what you said about like trying new things and just not be afraid of sharing and putting things out there, because I think I agree. Like a lot of people are afraid of doing that and they want to get everything perfect, and there's never perfect. And like today in today's era, imperfection is actually good. And I think like through our conversation that you will get to a perfect, but it would never be perfect. So I really like how you share that and all the experience. So thank you so much for joining us today. I want to do more of this with you. So it was so great to meet you.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate
Thank you.
Like and subscribe somewhere. One day we'll figure it
it.
Thank you, everyone.